Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Hello Again with me, Broomy of the Isabelle. This is the series where I talk to a lot of authors about a lot of things, and today I'm joined by Nicola Gill. I hope I'm saying your name right, am I? Gill, sorry, Miss Gill. See, I've balls up already. It can only get better from here on in. Thank you so much for being here. How are you? Are you well?
I'm good, thank you very much. Enjoying the sunshine.
Yes, it's beautiful, isn't it? Really beautiful. Long may it continue, although I fear rain is on the way.
I think so.
Both literal and figuratively. But anyway, we're not talking about COVID today. It's off the table. We're going to talk about you and your books. So do you want to start by just telling us the kind of books you write and a little bit about you as well?
Okay, so my book that's out at the moment is called, is called We Are Family. And it's a story about two sisters who are very, very different people. So you've got Laura, who's very laid back, likes taking to her bed to eat cheese. And then you've got Jess, the big sister, who's a sort of classic overachiever. So they're family, but they're not exactly friends. Mm-hmm. But then their mum, who, as a side note, was what one would gently describe as a character, their mum dies. And the two women are thrown together for the first time in years. And the story's about that, really, how they navigate it, whether they can get through it as a team, or whether they're going to end up killing each other. Not literally killing each other. It's not a crime novel.
It's not a crime novel.
Yeah, that's it. So that's We Are Family. And then my first book, I've only written 2 books so far, but my first book, The Neighbours, which also came out this year, and The Neighbours is about a woman called Ginny Taylor, who is 34, and she feels that she hasn't ticked any of the boxes that she was supposed to tick by this point in her life. So she's having a bit of a sort of panic. And it's all gone horribly wrong for Ginny. She's just lost her job. She's just lost her boyfriend. There's been a very unfortunate incident with throwing an orchid. And then she thinks it can't get any worse. And then she meets her downstairs neighbour, who's a really prickly woman called Cassie Frost, who's a sort of out-of-work actress. And Ginny's life does get quite a lot worse after that.
Amazing.
That's The Neighbours. Yeah.
So relatable, both your books, in fact, and especially We Are Family, I think, because I have 4 sisters.
Oh, wow.
4 sisters and 2 half brothers as well. So there's plenty of sibling difficulty, shall we say, rubbing each other up the wrong way. And it's strange because we are all completely different. We've all been brought up in the same way, but we're all completely different. And
so where are you in the family? Are you the younger end or
the second oldest girl? So I'm very much a middle child.
Okay.
Middle child syndrome. Yeah. My older sister is married with children, and then I've got a sister who's a portrait artist, another sister who's just become a bookseller. I've got a disabled sister who lives at home full time with my parents. So yeah, lots and lots of differences. And my brother's sort of 21. He's just about to go off to uni, so he's a lot younger.
Wow.
Yeah, the full spread.
Yeah, completely.
But there was so much about your character's relationship that I could relate to, and I wondered, is that drawn from life, and what was it that made you want to write about sisters?
So I have a brother and a sister. Well, actually, technically my half brother and sister, but I just call them my brother and sister because that's how I think of them. And they're great, and we get on really well, and we are quite different people. But we do get on very well. But I think what made me want to write about the sort of sibling relationship was that I was reading this article that was pointing out that you often have a relationship with your siblings for longer than anyone else in your whole life. And I just thought that's such an interesting thing, really, that actually it's such an important relationship, and actually it can be really, really life enhancing, and it can also be really fraught with difficulty. And obviously there can be a lot of competition between siblings, and I think the mum in the book, she really plays her girls off against one another. Yeah. Which is a lot of the reason they have issues later on. And I just thought that was quite sort of, fascinating territory, really, for a writer.
I wonder if sisters are more like that than brothers and sisters.
Yeah,
I think I've come across both with people that I know that have siblings. you know, those sort of rivalries and that banter.
Yeah, but the comparisons, I think, are harder, aren't they? Because
Yeah.
you know, it's always the sort of the old sort of adage about comparisons being odious is true, and people always feel the need to sort of say, you know, I don't know, one's the clever one, or one's the pretty one, or one's
Yeah, sort of box people in like that.
yeah, it's horrid, really, because you know, you don't, you shouldn't be like that, really.
I was always the
Yeah,
shy one because my sister was quite naughty, my older sister at school, and was a bit of a rebel and smoked and, you know, was wanting to go out with boys and stuff. And I think my parents just got was so exhausted by the time I was a teenager that I would just slyly sort of slip out the door and disappear. And I used to get up to all sorts of stuff, but no one ever really was keeping tabs in the same way. So she kind of like blazed the trail, and I kind of crept along in the sort of dust that she
yeah,
had.
that's really interesting. I mean, my sister, I think she was much naughtier than I ever was. I was always a bit of a sort of inveterate people pleaser, really. So, you know, even as a teenager, I was, you know, didn't want to sort of annoy anyone too much. But my sister was much more sort of rebellious than me, and I think she's still a bit more like that. You know,
maybe it is. It's sort of the job of the older sibling, isn't it, to kind of test the boundaries first. So
yeah.
that whoever's coming up behind them knows their limits, so doesn't get into trouble as much because they already know what they can and can't do. Essentially,
maybe, yeah. Maybe.
You're watching and learning all the time, I think.
Yeah.
Now, at the beginning of the book, it's fair to say Laura is a bit of a walkover when it comes to around her. She's a yes person, which I very much relate to, and I was like that for a long time. While Jess has the sort of online persona as outwardly perfect, you know, doing the mother and the wife thing perfectly.
Yes.
But it got me thinking about identity and how much of who we are as people is who we really are, and how much of it is a sort of persona that we put on because that's how other people see us, in essence. Like, you know, if your friendship group around you is always like, oh, you know, Isabelle's always, you know, up for a laugh, or she's always relaxed about stuff, and you feel like you have to play that role every time you're in that setting.
Completely. I think it's really fascinating, isn't it, is to what extent we are our labels and to what extent we become them. So again, you know, growing up, I was told quite often that I was a good girl, which seems like a nice thing to be told, but actually it becomes in some ways quite constraining, because you then sort of start to feel the weight of that responsibility that you mustn't be naughty or whatever. And I think you're right, even with friends, they tend to sort of, you know, you get in a groove, don't you, that you, they will know you as the, you know, I don't know, the organised one, or the one who likes cooking or whatever. And you sort of start to play those roles without even realising it. So I think it's a real mixture of the two things, really.
Yeah, I find that I need sort of downtime alone to just be me, almost, because I think the real me is quite introverted. But I'm quite generous, and I'm always quite calm. I always try to, if there's a stressful situation, which there often is in my family, bring it down a notch. But then all that kind of builds up inside, and I think, God, I need a couple of, this is why I go off traveling for like a month at a time. I just need time where I'm just like, I don't have to please anyone except myself.
No, I so relate to that, because I'm quite calm, and if there's a big sort of drama going on, I'll generally be sort of, you know, good at sort of smoothing over and soothing everyone and dealing with it. But then afterwards, when everything's kind of okay, then it's almost like it hits me then.
Yeah.
And actually, I remember a thing when my sister was little, and so I'm quite a lot older than my brother and sister. And when my sister was little, she fell over and she cut her head open, and it was one of those things where it wasn't actually that bad with the benefit of hindsight, but like a lot of sort of head injuries, there's blood everywhere and whatever, and everyone's sort of making a huge fuss. And I was only 12 at the time. My sister was, you know, little, and I was very sort of calm, and I was sort of tending the wound, and you know telling her it's going to be fine, whatever. And then when we actually got her to the hospital and she went in to have her stitches, then it was only then that it hit me, and I started crying, and I felt really shocked.
Yeah.
But at the time, you'd have thought that I was, I don't know, a nurse or something.
Yeah, but it is that, I think that's common in a lot of people, actually, that to hold on to that shock it only sort of hits you later.
Yeah.
Sometimes months later it can,
Yeah.
and hold on to it because it's too like, oh, to confront it is too frightening.
Yeah, completely. And you know, like you, I definitely need my alone time where I can just sort of, you know, not talk to anyone, and you know, just,
this is
you
where
know.
writing is so marvelous for us, because all the things that we're like, we might not feel like we're able to say and do in a situation, we can make our characters do. And my characters are always a lot braver than me, and always a lot more forthright, I can't say that word, in the way that they speak to men, especially. I'm always like, God, I wish I had her, you know, her courage and the way she kind of doesn't put up with any nonsense. I wish I was more like
I'm reading at the moment where so I was just going through some notes from my agent and editor on what I'm writing now, and it's really funny because the male character that I've written, my notes before I send it to them is he too nice, you know, is he a bit sort of bland because he's sort of too likable, too all good. Anyway, both of them independently have come back with, oh, he's too awful.
Really? Oh no.
What did you say about me as a person that I thought this character was actually a bit too good to be true? Yeah. They both come back and said, no, it's nice enough. And I'm thinking, oh, okay.
I quite often get the, like, I don't like this person very much. And then a list of all the awful things she's done to those around her. And I'm like, oh yeah, she is actually a real bitch, you know.
No,
I didn't mean to do that. I just wanted to make her a little, you know, create some tension.
I know, it's funny. And it's funny when sometimes you get in reviews, you get sort of people saying, oh God, I could have shaken that character when they did that. And you're thinking, how dare you?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
The character I wrote, which is most like me, who I won't admit here, is the one that gets the most grief from Ruby.
Oh God, I know.
She's so immature, and I'm like, it's basically me.
I must say, the sort of flack I've ever got about a character are the ones where I think, oh no, I would have done exactly that. I really identify with that person.
It is funny, isn't it? But then the relationship we have with our characters is never the same.
No.
Like once a reader comes in, or readers come in, and that's when the book really sort of comes to life, because all those characters change and people's perceptions are completely different. It's really fascinating, I think.
Really fascinating. And you know, the two of them not liking this sort of you know, essentially sort of male lead, I'm sort of thinking, well, it kind of makes my feminist heart sing a bit, but actually my writer heart sinking, because I'm thinking, what's happened? They not like him.
I know, it's of all the sort of romantic heroes I've written so far, I think most people like Aidan, who from the first book, who does behave, he's quite arrogant and he's very go-gettery and he's very sort of, you know, assuming of his masochism and attractiveness. And I think, God, he's, of all of them, he's probably the worst one.
Oh, really?
He gets all the love because he's like an Irish scruffy vet.
Okay.
Looks like Poldark. I think that's what it is.
Oh, okay. You see, I mean, that's saying something about people, isn't it?
No, I probably would, so I can't say anything. Anyway, moving on from our character. Well, back to your characters. Laura's son Billy in the book is definitely one of the standout stars, I'd say. Really cracked me up. And I just I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but did you borrow any anecdotal bits? Because I know you've got two sons of your own, is that right?
I have.
Really based on them.
I did definitely steal little bits, yeah. So my oldest son, Charlie, he definitely used to have a bit of a dinosaur obsession, which Billy shares. Charlie's grown out of it now, which is lucky because he's 22 and ready to be a doctor, so it'd be a bit weird. All kinds of things. So Laura has a 5th birthday party for Billy at one stage, and which is all a bit horrid. And one of the dads drops off his son and very casually hands her an EpiPen and says, "Oh, you know, Zach's got a peanut allergy." And that actually happened to me. So at a party for my younger son, Max, actually a dad did actually hand over a child saying he's got a severe peanut allergy.
Maybe he was like a Bantosaurus Rex dad, and he's just like,
it wasn't very relaxing, that party. I didn't love it. I needed quite a big glass of wine.
Don't eat or drink anything.
Really? I was supervised that child very closely.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. That's nuts. And this is the thing, isn't it, with writing? Like, you can't. I think people always say to me, like, is so and so based on a person, and I'm always like, no, I don't base characters on people, but I do borrow anecdotal stuff, because
Yes.
sometimes it's just gold, isn't it? You can't not.
Yes, yes, I worry a bit about myself that I've become a really terrible person, because people can be telling me this story that's really, you know, Flan can be telling me this story about something terrible that's happened to them. And I am listening and I am being sympathetic, but also a small part of me is thinking, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Like storing it away.
You're taking mental notes.
So yes, so I have said to people now, just don't tell me anything.
One of my friends told me the most fascinating story recently, involving like a crazy girlfriend and CCTV cameras, and it's the most brilliant story that I want to sell to a thriller writer, because it would just make a fascinating opening to a novel. But it's not my kind of fiction, so maybe I'll save it. I don't know. So
yeah,
but I was like, oh my god,
yeah,
it's
really
gold.
good to have these little things stored up, and I think you're right. I mean, certainly for me, I never base a character wholesale on a person. You know, you might take the odd mannerism or trait, but not a person. Yeah. But anecdotes for me are fair game. They're going in at some point.
Definitely, it's too limiting, I think, if you try and base somebody on a person that you know, because you can get right inside the heads of your characters. You can't do that with people that you know.
Yeah, completely.
Quite rightly too. God knows what we'd find in there. Now, viewers of this series are always really fascinated to learn about an author's sort of path to publication. So I wanted to ask you how you got your break, and what the most exciting part of the process has been so far, other than this interview, obviously.
Other than this interview, yes. Okay, so my path to publication was pretty bumpy, if I'm honest.
Excellent.
So I first announced rather grandly that I was going to be an author when I was 5, because I was a bit of a weird kid. And then, having said that, it then took me forever and a day to actually get round to trying to write. And I didn't start trying to write fiction until about 10 years ago. And I actually got an agent really quickly with that first novel. And I was so thrilled, and probably a bit smug, to be honest, because I thought, oh, look at me, I've done it. Everyone says it's so hard, but I've done it. And it was a really good, she was a really good agent at a really good agency. So I thought, oh, that's it, I'm made. But then she couldn't actually get me a publishing deal for the book. And it was so devastating, because I didn't really know that happened. I thought if you got an agent, you got a deal. So yeah, that was a bit of a shock. So I wrote another book, and then can you guess? The same thing happened again.
Odd.
I know. So it was a bit sort of like, you know, what's going on. And then by the time I then wrote my third book, my agent had decided that she was going to retire. Not entirely because of me, I hope, but coincidentally. So it was awful, because I was sort of back to square one, with this sort of
confidence knock as well.
And yeah, real sort of knock to the confidence and what have you. So then it took me forever and a day to sort of finish that book. I think mostly due to the fact that I was a bit sort of, deflated. And eventually did, and then I eventually got my now agent, and she got me the deal, and the rest is history. And I've actually had, weirdly, 2 books out this year, which I don't know what that's about, but very strange. I'm sure there's a buses joke here somewhere.
Well, yeah, that must have been quite a moment then, when you got that call to say that.
Yeah, it was extraordinary. So I was at work at the time, and just sitting at my desk, doing whatever I was doing, and I got a call from my agent, and she said they've made an offer. Amazing. And I sort of lost the ability to form any kind of coherent sentence at all. I was just so stunned and so thrilled. Very glamorously standing outside the toilets, because that was the only place you could go to get any privacy to actually have a call in this open plan office. So yes, so my life-changing news was standing just outside the toilets.
Wherever you were, you'll never forget. I remember interviewing Celia Ahern once, and her telling me that she was in like a multi-story car park when she found out that P.S. I Love You had sold into America for like over £1 million deal.
Wow.
And she didn't have any money to get her car out of the parking, and how weird it was, like that sort of that feeling like, oh my God, I'm going to be a millionaire, but she had to ring her dad to
that's such a nice story.
I know, it's brilliant, isn't it?
Where were you when you got your deal?
I was in my scuzzy, horrible flat in Camden that I used to live in by myself. I'd been dumped by my boyfriend literally a week before it happened, so I was still like numb. And yeah, my agent rang me and she said, are you sitting down? I think you should sit down. And I was just sitting there and I couldn't believe it. It took a while to sink in.
Yes.
And then I called my mum, and my mum cried for about a day, I think.
Yeah.
She couldn't like, she was as happy as I should have been, but it took a while, I think.
Yeah.
Until I sort of saw the cover of the first book for it to really to hit me in that hard way when I sort of
yeah.
was like, I can't believe this is happening to me. And I don't know whether it's just the delayed shock or the like lingering heartbreak. Probably both.
Bit of both, yeah.
Yeah, but it's, you know, that moment is something that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
And it does change your life. Like, it sounds easy, doesn't it? But your life is never going to be the same again once you've got a book deal. Like, you'll always be a published author. No one can take that away from you.
That's true.
Such a privilege. Yeah.
Yes.
It still doesn't, I mean, it doesn't, I'm on writing book 8 now, and it's still feels just as thrilling and as exciting as it ever did in the beginning.
Good.
So you've got all that to come.
Oh, I hope so.
Is that your highlight, would you say?
Getting that call, I mean, it was pretty fantastic. Yeah, it was pretty amazing, especially after the sort of the journey to get there had been sort of, you know, not an easy one.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty amazing. But there are lots of highlights. I mean, getting messages from readers is such a lovely thing, and that, you know, never fails to make my day when you get a message from someone just saying, oh, you know, I was up till 4 a.m. reading your book, I'm loving it, or something like that. It's just so nice that people take the time and trouble to do that.
One of my other author friends, when I started out, she was sort of a book and a half ahead of me. And she said to me, you know, all the really good reviews you get and the nice messages, she was like, print them out and keep them in a book, like a scrapbook. She said, and go to that when you're feeling like you can't write or you're having a bad day.
Yes.
But that again, don't go to Amazon and click on the 2-star review bit,
yes.
you know, and read those and tell yourself that you're terrible because somebody didn't like your book. She's like, you've got to focus on those good ones. But I've never done it. Maybe I should. It always feels like too much of an indulgence, you know, like, good for me. Like,
yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I mean, I've never done it, but I can absolutely appreciate where that advice is coming from, because it's so easy to look. And I'm touching wood when I say this. I've been quite lucky so far with my reviews, but you know, early days. And but if you get one that's even a bit sort of meh, as my kids would say, that's the one that stays with you, not all the good ones. And
it's so true. It's because sorry about my curtain is trying to be part of this video. Passed away behind the printer. It's like, hello, what about me? No, God, I forgot what I was going to say. No, definitely. I think it's because we feel like imposters.
Oh God, don't. I mean,
anything creative, there's always an element of self-doubt. And I don't think it matters if you're J.K. Rowling or if you're, you know, a debut author who's written a short story or whatever it might be. You still think that it's come from me, therefore it must be at fault in some way.
Completely. And or you know, even if you sort of start to think, okay, well, you know, I've managed to do it once, you think, oh, it's just a bit of fluke or whatever, and you know, I'll never manage to do that again. Yeah,
I always say to my friends, it's like staring in the mirror and your reflection telling you that you look fat in that dress. Do you know what I mean? It's like, or somebody coming up to you at a party and going, what are you wearing that for? It looks awful. It's the same when you get a bad review. It's somebody coming up and taking a personal attack at you. That's how it feels. And I'm like,
it does feel like that. It's pretty devastating, isn't it?
Yeah, but you know, they're not for us, are they? They're for reading.
I was hoping you were going to tell me that by book 8 it all gets really easy.
It gets much harder.
Disillusioning me, Isabelle.
I
I
think
want
it's
it to come in, it's all going to be super, super easy.
no, I think it's because I think I just challenge myself more with every book. So I want to do,
Yeah.
I want it to be better written. I want it to be more exciting locations. I want the plots to be more exciting. I want there to be more sort of tension. I want the snappy reads. I want people to speed through. It's like, I just want to up the game every time. And I think
Yes.
I'll never stop doing that. So I'm always going to put a rod for my own back.
Yeah.
But I think I'd get bored if I just wrote the same book over and over again, you know?
Yeah.
I like to give myself things that I don't really understand or know that much about and learn about them and then sort of share that learning as well. I like doing that.
Yes.
So, yeah. But I often curse myself, especially during the structural edit phase of the.
I've also got a really bad habit of agreeing to, or sometimes even suggesting, really tight deadlines and then thinking, why have I done that? It's the sort of people pleaser in me. So, you know, when people say, oh, you know, can you turn this around in, you know, whatever it is, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever, I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And then afterwards I sort of, you know, think, why did I say that?
I can do it with edits. I think because I was a sub-editor for a very long time.
Oh, right.
So once I have a draft of a book that is kind of reached the stage where it's line edits and things.
Yes,
It can
yes.
be really brutal because I can separate it from being my book and just look at it as a body of work and be like, well, that's terrible. That's got too many adverbs or whatever, and that's repetitious, and just put it all out really easily. And I can turn those deadlines around really fast. So I always say to my editor, I know this draft's taking ages, but remember, I'm really fast at editing.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Then what a
drop
skill.
half the amount of time of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've done copy edits in 3-4 hours before. So
have you? Oh my God. Okay.
That process is easy for me, but yeah.
Showing the rest of us up.
No, but the drafting is like pain, pure pain. It's like it's like that sloth, that gif of a sloth crawling across a road really slow. That is me drafting. It's just, yeah.
Oh.
But it's fun. It is fun.
It's fun.
We've reached the famous quickfire time.
Okay.
The coconut shell, which smells of bird feed.
Okay.
Contains random questions from which I will pull out 4.
Okay. I'm ready.
Question number 1. Da, 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 da. Ooh, what's your greatest achievement to date?
My kids.
Yeah. Good answer. You were like, shall I go book? No.
Can you imagine if I hadn't said that?
I know.
I mean, honestly, I did for a minute want to say my books, if I'm really honest, but you know, really my kids.
Mine is starting to become my plants, like my plants that I look after. I'm like, done really well with that plant. It's flowering, you know.
Well, that would be me too, because I've never managed to keep a plant alive inside or outside. So I'm very impressed.
Just get spider plants. It's impossible to kill them. Trust me. I've got about 400. You can have some. Okay. Question 2. Ooh. Oh, do you believe in ghosts? And if so, why?
I don't think I do believe in ghosts, really. I sort of believe that the sort of spirit of someone lives on, which is a different thing, I think. So, you know, my dad is not around anymore, and I definitely feel sometimes a sort of his presence, if that doesn't sound too weird.
No.
And I feel that his sort of opinion on something or his feelings on something, but I don't really imagine him as a ghost as such. It's just the sort of, I don't know, presence.
Like a presence or an essence.
Yes,
it's almost like you're carrying a piece of someone with you.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But no, not actual ghosts. Do you believe in actual ghosts?
I'm not sure. I've never seen or experienced anything, but people close to me have. People that I trust not to tell lies. So I'm kind of split. I kind of think there's probably parts of people's brains that they can use and I can't use.
Okay.
And I really believe in instinct strongly. And I always wonder about instinct and where that sense comes from, whether it's just the sort of innate knowledge that someone is good or bad, or that a situation is good or bad, because that whole fight or flight thing that we have is so powerful.
Yes.
And it took me a long time to actually recognize that as, you know, don't go near this man, he is bad.
Yeah.
He will mess
because sometimes we ignore those instincts, don't we?
you think they're butterflies. They're not. Those are butterflies going, run now, run away. Go, oh, I'm so excited to see him. No, you're not. You're terrified. Quite rightly.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's always really interested me. I'd like to write about that one day. But,
Yes.
yeah. Not a ghost story, though.
Uh,
Not yet. Oh, okay. Favorite book character of all time and why? Quite difficult, that.
Okay, so I don't think I can do favorite of all time because I've read a lot of books and I've loved a lot of books and a lot of book characters. But just off the top of my head, there is a book called Standard Deviation by Catherine Heine. Don't know if you've read it.
I don't know.
But the main character in that, Audra, is amazing. She's just so larger than life and so wonderful. So she sort of talks too much, talks to everyone, sort of casts a bit of a spell on people, gloriously indiscreet, and just really wonderful. And she's definitely stayed with me for a long time since stopping reading the book. But truthfully, there's a lot.
Amazing. Say that book title again.
It's called Standard Deviation, and it's by Catherine Heine. And I press it eagerly onto everyone because I really love it.
I love a good book recommendation.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It's a sort of, I don't know if this is how she'd like me to describe it at all, but it's a sort of portrait of a marriage. But it's just very, very funny in parts and very, very moving, which is always a bit of a winning combination.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's really good.
I love that answer. Right, okay. Gonna dig out the final one. Oh, what's one life mantra that you live by?
Oh, what's one life mantra that I live by? I would say try to see the positives, which feels like a very kind of, difficult thing to be saying in 2020, doesn't it? Because it's been
never been more important. I don't.
Never been more important, yeah. And I don't mean by that one has to be relentlessly and boringly positive when things are going terribly wrong. And actually, there are times where it's a bit tiresome to sort of keep on saying, well, yeah, but it'll be fine. Yeah. Sometimes things just are bad and you have to sort of roll with that, I guess. But generally trying to see the positives in a situation can only be a good thing, both for you and I think for the people around you. And trying to sort of be fairly upbeat in as much as you can.
Yeah, I find people that are sort of relentlessly the opposite, the sort of the glass half empty people, very genuine to be around. Kind of, the catastrophizers, let's call them, the kind of, what if we get there and the train's not running and then we can't get a seat together, and then it's always like worry, and I'm like, well, let's just get there fast before we laden on the doom.
Yeah, so I'm like that, and I always just think it's sort of it really sort of sucks all the joy out of things. If you're always sort of as you say, catastrophizing about what could happen. And it doesn't really prepare you.
No, exactly.
Because life's not really like that anyway. Sort of, I generally find the things that you worry about and you think might happen are actually not the things that are going to happen.
Yeah, we wouldn't have coped any differently, I don't think, with COVID. If someone had said to us in 2010, or in 2020, so life as we know it's going to grind to a halt, and we're all going to be shut in our house. We're going to be like, what? Like, you wouldn't be able to imagine it. So we've had 10 years of worry.
we may have stocked up on loo roll and frozen peas, but apart from that, we'd have been no better prepared for it all, because you can't prepare for it.
No.
And it's the same with sort of all the big things in life, really. Sort of grief or whatever. It doesn't, like, knowing something's going to happen or worrying something's going to happen doesn't prepare you for it. So you've just got to sort of deal with it the best you can when it happens.
That's true. And the same goes for the good stuff. Like, nothing can prepare you for how it feels when you have your first book launch and everyone's staring at you expectantly and you have to speak coherently. I failed at with absolute style many times over. Every single launch I do a speech, and every single time I'm just like this red weird radish going blah, 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 but unable to speak.
I'm sure you're not. I'm sure you're a totally charming radish.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Just a plain radish.
It is.
But
It's
yeah,
a
at least COVID has saved me a couple of couple of book,
well, I was
book
really
parties.
lucky because I got my the neighbours. My first book came out in February, so it was just before
Oh, well done.
lockdown. So I got my party.
Oh, amazing.
Which I absolutely loved. And then, but of course, for We Are Family came out on September the 3rd, and so that nothing,
much quieter.
no longer
belated.
Yes, exactly. I think I was
some sort of huge book party when
nice.
when we are allowed to gather in groups of more than 6 again.
I did have a really wonderful present from a friend of mine who had a cake made to look like the book.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, and it was so fantastic. So I got the cake, so
Yeah, and you ate it, hopefully.
Oh,
you had your cake and you ate it. You're like, I wrote that book, that's all me. It's my hard work.
Exactly.
We earned it, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming and spending some time with me, and for telling everybody about the books. Hold them up again so people can see them, and I can do a nice little screen grab.
Thank you.
There they are. Amazing.
Oh,
they're brilliant book. Brilliant.
Fingers over the actual title.
Brilliant. Funny, life affirming, relatable, honest, truthful, just brilliant. Well done, you, and congratulations. And I can't wait to read the next one.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
You are very, very welcome. Thanks for listening, everybody, and come back next week for more of the same joy and fun. In fact, 2 authors next week I'm going to be joined by. I can't tell you who, it's a secret. Yeah. Cool. Be here or be square. Can't think of anything intelligent to say. Bye, everybody. See you soon.
Bye.